Greetings from Omaha, Nebraska, with another edition of TomBecka.com, where everyone's exceptional and everyone has a story to tell. And if this is your first time visiting us here, what we do on this podcast, every week we interview a person with an interesting story. It could be inspirational, it could be fun, it could be educational, it could be a little bit of anything. Maybe all of them all wrapped up into one. Because I do believe that people are fascinating. And everybody's got something that we can learn from. And that's what this one's about today. Traci Williamson is a friend that I've known for a while. And she is a wine connoisseur. A wine salesperson, also a connoisseur of wine. And wine is something I don't know a lot about. I know single malt scotch. I feel comfortable being around people who drink single malt scotch and talking intelligently about the single malt scotch. But if I'm around a bunch of wine drinkers, or if I have to buy some wine, order at a restaurant, or buy a bottle for a gift, I get a little bit intimidated, a little bit hesitant, because I don't know much about wine. So I figure, well, Traci knows. Why don't I learn from her? So I'm killing two birds with one stone here. I'm doing a podcast, and I myself am learning about something that has kind of intimidated me over the years. Like I said, I don't know a lot about wine, and one of the things I don't know is that there's more than just a sommelier to be an expert in wine. Yeah, sommelier was the only term that I knew. Traci is an expert, but she's not a sommelier.
No, I have certified specialist of wine, which basically I went for because it got me cool initials behind my name. But it's kind of the sommelier on the selling side, basically. So I did have to pass the test. It was a 30% pass rate. 10 of us went up from Nebraska to take the test, and 4 of us passed. And my first try, so I was very happy.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so in effect, basically, a sommelier would be a person working at the restaurant who would tell you all about the wine. You're the person that sells to the restaurant who tells them all about the wine.
Yes, that's correct. Although I can go get my sommelier, but that requires different tests where you taste, you smell, you identify the wines just based off of that. Mine was more of the technical side.
Okay, so tell me about this, because I know a little bit about scotch. I know nothing about wine. Very, very, very little. I can fake it sometimes at a restaurant. I'll look at it's a red. It costs this much, so it must be pretty good. Okay, fine, we'll get this. I'll just go with the recommendation of the waiter or whatever. But really, I know nothing about it. What is the allure of wine?
For me, actually, I started off selling beer and then moved into more of liquor and then got really, really interested in wine. For me, the allure of wine is not only the taste and the different wine profiles, the different varietals. I love the stories about the wineries. So that's what really drew me into it.
What do you mean?
Well, for instance, just to pull a winery out, the Klein Winery, the fact that they are sustainable, they have sheep wandering. What they do is they plant these crops, they have insects that come in there, and then the sheep go through, so it's natural pesticide. So stories like that is what I find the most interesting about wine.
Okay, so each winery has... It's not just you grow the grapes, you smash them, ferment them, bottle them, and that's it, right?
There are some wineries that are like that, but the most interesting ones actually have a story, family owned. They've been in business for 150 years. I mean, there are some of those. So,
okay. Now explain to me why how American wines. Now American wines are getting better, right?
Absolutely. California, Washington, Oregon are really the hot regions right now. I've had a great Cabernet out of Arizona as well. I don't personally care for the Nebraska wines as much, but there are a lot of people that do care for those. They are a little sweeter, but the California, Oregon, Washington wines are grown in the great grape regions.
Why is that area doing better than, let's say, Nebraska or Mississippi or any other part of the country?
Climate. And you'll notice if you look at France, Italy, and the California, Washington, they're all on the same latitude, longitude. So that's a lot of it's the climate, basically.
So just the climate, then they grow a better type of a grape, right?
It's just they grow a different type of grape. Cabernet does not thrive in Nebraska very well just because it gets too cold here. And what you want is you want the warm climate and ideally fog to come in at night, and it cools it down, but it holds some of that warmth in with the fog on top.
Okay. So, so those areas are doing better, and then France, of course, is always. Now, okay, is France truly a better wine, or are you just paying for the reputation?
I wouldn't necessarily say better. It's different. There's old world style and there's new world style. And some of the California wineries are trying to do old world style, but when people ask me, is it a better wine? I ask them, do you like the wine? If you like it, it's a good wine.
Okay, well, now you see, now you're losing me on this here already. Old world style and new world style.
Old world style would be more of the France, Italy, basically the regions that have been making wine for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And then the new world style, California, Americans actually like their wines a little bit fruitier. So that is the new world style, whereas you'll get more of a dustier or older feel to the wine.
Okay.
Off of the
now you brought a little wine here. You
Yes.
brought a little wine. Okay. No. What is this? What is this you have?
This is the Bridalwood Pinot Noir. So this is actually a new world style Pinot Noir.
A new old style.
Yes, it is. You're going to get the fruitier taste off of it. In France, if you were to get a Pinot Noir, you get a little bit of dustiness off the flavor, and hard to describe unless we had one to compare. But
Well, why didn't you bring another bottle then, damn it?
I know. Bridalwood is actually a great winery out of California, though. They have not been doing many Pinot Noirs, but they just branched out and started doing that. They're an old equestrian rehabilitation center, so I think it's all the old horse in the terroir that's making fantastic wines for
It goes back to the story you said about each winery has a story.
Exactly.
So this was an old horse ranch, and now they grow wine and grow grapes and make wine.
Exactly, and they make fantastic wines, known primarily for their Syrahs, but
Okay, now this is a
Pinot Noir.
varietal, right?
Yes,
Which
that
means
is a
what?
varietal. Varietal means the type of grape. There's hundreds and hundreds of types of grapes, and in America, we actually label it by the type of grape. In France, they label it by the region. And there are certain grape types that are permitted to be in those wines. And same with Italy. Unless you get to a Super Tuscan where the winemakers wanted to include different things that weren't necessarily permissible, but makes fantastic wine.
Okay, so a varietal, when I hear that, in my mind, I think that it'd be a hybrid of some sort.
No, varietal is actually it's the vinifera, which vinifera is original vine.
No, you don't even use good words like this. You're going to lose me. A viniferum.
Vinifera is
Vinifera.
Vinifera. That's the actual term. That's the original vine that they brought over from France, and it's one type of grape. So your Chardonnay, your Merlot, your Cab, your Pinot Noir, Sangiovese, Syrah, Zin, those are all varietals, specific grapes.
Okay, what was that word you used?
Vinifera.
The vinifera. By the way, if I remember that, I'm going to sound classy next time I go into your wine. Oh yes, where was the vinifera from? So the vinifera is basically the seedling that they bring over from France, right?
Yes. In America, most places it's actually grafted onto American rootstock because of, and here's another big word, phylloxera, which is a little louse, basically, and it's vine cancer. And that attacked all the vines, killed many, many vineyards in California. And what they did is then they found a way to graft vinifera onto American rootstock and create the same varietals.
Okay, so this makes it a better wine or a better grape because it is coming from the France region or wherever it's coming from, as opposed to maybe the type of grapes that they would use to make, Welch's jelly or something, right?
It's a different type. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely different type.
I told you, I don't know anything about this.
You definitely cannot use the Concord grapes to make wine.
Okay, so Concord is a different type. Okay, so and why not?
But you can use the rootstock. It's too sweet.
Okay, but you use a lot of other stuff besides just grape to make wine, right? I mean, there's dandelion wine, cherry wine, there's other stuff, right? Is that?
And honestly, I'm not as familiar with those types of wines. I know they exist. I have not studied as much about those, but the dandelion wines I can't imagine would taste like this.
No, okay, no. But it doesn't always have to be grapes though for wine. I guess what I'm saying, or does
actually it does. Wine is actually grape juice, and it all starts off first of all as white juice. Mm-hmm. All grape juice is clear when it runs out, and it gets to be red or white just depending on how they treat it. But it all starts from actual grapes.
I'll tell you how times have changed. Okay, when I was in high school, some buddies and I thought it would be a nice little project if we made our own wine. Seriously, we made our and our parents knew about it because it was like, okay, well, we don't want you drinking any of it, but And I was a sophomore in high school, so I was like 16, and my buddy next door, JB Purdue, and his brother, and we all went one night. We lived outside of Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. We went out one night. We went out to the orchards and stole a bunch of cherries. A bunch of cherries from Ohio State University. The statute of limitations is over now. And we went back and we ground them all up, put them like through a little meat grinder, ground them all up, got the pulp, got all that. And I mean, we studied this. We bought, what's the little bulb thing that you buy with water on it to let the gases out and all of that, right?
Yes.
We did this. We made our own wine, and I have no idea if it was any, our parents said, oh, it was rather sweet, but very tasty, I have no idea if it was any good or not at all, but we made our own wine.
A lot of times that's more like a cider than an actual wine.
Now you're dissing me, okay?
But
you snobs. That's the thing about you wine people. You're such snobs. For me, it was wine, damn it. I was 16. It was wine. I don't care what.
Well, let's just say technically Mad Dog is wine too. So
okay. Okay, so now this Pinot Noir that you brought. All right, work me through this now. Okay, so we do it. You know, it's the nose, right? You don't say you smell it.
No, it's the nose.
The nose.
Well, very first you have to start off with sight, and so you can tell a lot about the wine just looking at the color, whether it's little brick red, whether it's deep red, clear, dark on the whites. You want to swirl it, and people always ask why, and I'll tell you, very first reason is to look cool. But
so you have the you swirl the wine and you throw in the vocifera. You throw that into the conversation,
and then you look cool.
Then they are taken back and they think you know what the hell you're talking about.
Precisely.
All right, okay.
But the other reason that you swirl the wine is to actually release the aromas, to open the wine up. And then you also get to see the legs. And now on a Pinot Noir, you're not going to see a ton of legs. The legs are the drippings that come down the side of the glass after you swirl it. And a lot of times that is indication of alcohol content. So the higher the alcohol, the thicker the legs are going to be when they're dripping down.
Okay, so if it's a more potent wine,
they're going to be thicker.
It'll stick to the glass more.
And these, you'll notice we do have legs, but they're not super thick.
Mm-hmm, okay.
But the nose, you basically want to put your nose in there and get the different aromas. On this one, I mean, we're getting the cherry, the raspberry, the lighter fruits. But on other ones, you can get things like cassis, tobacco, deep cherries, chocolate. So it all depends on the wine.
Okay, now I know a little bit about single malt Scotch, and I go to Scotch tastings. And with Scotch tastings, you have a dominant nostril and a weaker nostril, and you use the dominant nostril to sample or to nose the Scotch, I guess. But with wine, you put both nostrils, right?
Everyone always says to put that in there, but I won't lie. I do use my dominant nostril a little bit more. But It's best to bury your nose in there, and that way you're getting the full experience.
By the way, okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about with the dominant nostril, here's a great little bar thing that you do, okay? If you're drinking a whiskey especially, you talked about this, you make a bar bet, that you have a dominant nostril, and they think you're nuts. And you clog up one side, and you sniff, I guess, I know this ain't the classy term, you nose it or whatever. You plug up one nostril, one side, and inhale, and then do the other side. One side, you'll just get like the alcohol, just the alcohol. The other side, you'll be able to get some of the nuances of the Scotch.
Absolutely.
And the same thing is true with the wine, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you'll be able to do that. So there's actually a dominant nostril and a, I guess, non-dominant nostril. And people think you're nuts when you first say it, and then they're blown away, and that's all they talk about the rest of the night.
Yeah. Exactly. I completely agree, but they say to start off with the full nose in there, but I always change and do the dominant and non-dominant.
Now, I've never been very good at being able to determine what the other aromas are and what I'm really, smelling.
Now, one of the cool things about wine is we have these kits that when we go out and do a training, they have different scents in different little jars. They're just a little aroma jars. So that helps you learn how to pick some of it out. And then little flavors, we bring little samples of little flavors that helps you pick out the flavors. A lot of it you get from the tasting notes from the winery, which are very entertaining. But the more you drink wine, the more you learn how to pick out some of those little scents.
Who's the expert on this as far as the notes? Because I know in Scotch, there's a gentleman who's passed away now, but name was Michael Jackson, of all names, Michael Jackson, who had written these books. And the same thing, and you'd read some of these descriptions of these scotches, and it would be like, a wisp of linen and a hint of hickory. And it's like, really, dude, I just like it,
Exactly. The expert on the wines is, there are several different sources, but Robert Parker is the one that I think is the most knowledgeable. There's also Wine Enthusiast, Wine Spectator. And if you go to any winery's website, you can find out what they think of their wines. But Robert Parker is the big guy that we all consider to be the expert.
What about this, though? I mean, I know that, you mentioned if you like the wine, that's all that matters.
That's actually what I think. Now for me, I've gotten to be a little more of a wine snob than I used to be because I get to sample some really
because
nice
you know
wines,
all the big fancy words.
Well, that and I get samples, but no. For instance, my mother, she really likes Rieslings, so I don't care for Rieslings, but her favorite Riesling is honestly a $10 Riesling, and you know what? If she likes it, it's a good wine.
Now okay. Funny you mention that because I was in Germany last year and had some Riesling while I was there, and it was not as sweet as the Rieslings are here.
It really depends on what region you're getting it from. Germany actually uses chaptalization, where
another big word.
I know. They actually their grapes are not picked at a high enough Brix. There's another big word, which is sugar level in the grapes. So they can add actual sugar to the must to get it up to alcohol level. So that affects it a little bit. But then it's also just the region and how the winemaker treats it and what they do with it. So and that's all winemaker secrets, and that's something that I don't know. So.
Now, will the wineries overseas, will they make wine specifically for the American market? In other words, would a Riesling if I had from the same winery, could the Riesling that I had when I was in Germany be a little bit different than the Riesling they might export over to the United States?
That does occur from time to time because the American palate is a little bit sweeter. Everyone here says they like to drink dry, but they prefer sweet.
Yeah, okay. Now that was another thing. First of all, I like the one in Riesling, the one in Germany, a lot better than I do here. So dry. You use the term, okay, drink dry. What does that really mean?
Dry. Now, when people are saying dry, they're thinking more. I love the Cabernets. I love the Syrahs, which have more tannins, so they are a little bit of a drier wine. But then they really actually drink the Rieslings and Pinot Gris and Sauv Blancs that are a little more sweet, and Pinot Noir, of course. But part of that was because of the movie Sideways. So,
really, yeah, because when that movie came out, Pinot Noir went through the roof, right?
Oh, absolutely. Before that, it was out of control.
Before that, it was more of like a Syrahs were bred and stuff, right?
Absolutely. Syrah, Merlot, Zinfandel, they were all huge. Pinot Noir, it had its place, but it wasn't nearly what it was after the movie came out. But interesting fact is at the end of the movie, when he's drinking his most coveted wine out of a paper cup, that was a Merlot. After he complained about Merlot the entire movie.
Now you've just ruined it for me. Now you've just ruined it for me.
I'm just trying to bring Merlot back.
Okay, so what is that about wines that come into fashion and don't come into fashion, right? Does that go back into the whole snob thing about wine?
I don't know if it's necessarily the snob thing or just people find out about new varietals and they just go with it. Like Malbec. Malbec has come into fashion, and now everyone wants Malbecs. And Malbecs have just absolutely taken off, and California is actually producing some Malbecs now, which traditionally they have not.
And Malbec, again, is a type of grape.
It's a grape. Yes, it is a grape. It is. It's not necessarily. It's not indigenous to Argentina, but that is where it really, really took off.
Yeah, well, that's something else too. We're talking about United States wines and French wines, but Argentina has quite the wine industry too, doesn't it?
Oh, they have a huge wine industry, especially when Malbec started taking off. And the great thing about Argentina is the land cost is pretty low. So the wines are coming in very well priced, and they are producing fantastic wines. And most of them are from Mendoza. But also Portugal is producing some great still wines. Spain is producing some great wines. There's a lot of regions that have not been discovered yet.
You talked about Spain, a little bit that I know there. They also have port, right?
They do. Yeah.
Was that more Portugal?
There's that. Actually, Spain is more sherry. Portugal is the port, and that's a whole other region. So, and that's a whole other group of big words that you don't want me to throw around. Spain, honestly, the Rioja, Grenache, some Albarino. And Albarino is the one that people should discover right about now because that is a patio wine, and it is fantastic.
Patio wine, meaning?
Just very, very light, white. You could be standing out there grilling, and it's a very refreshing white wine. Okay. But no one knows what Albarino is, but you get them to taste it, and they absolutely love it. It's very close to a Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay, now that's something else. Okay, the whole red and white thing. I was always, told back in the day, red wine with meat, white wine with fish, right?
Not necessarily. No,
that's what they said.
That's what they said. They lied.
Oh, no, I've been lied to before.
It really, really depends on what you're doing. You can have a red wine with salmon, or you can have a white wine with salmon, kind of depending on how you prepare it. And it really just depends on the weight of the meal, if that makes sense. So if you have a creamy meal, you can have a bigger wine to cut through it. But a lot of it is just if you have something that's fatty, you want a more crisp wine to cut through it.
Okay. So if I go and order a red wine, but I'm ordering with a fish that has a cream sauce or a more fatty type of a fish, that won't be. They're not going to throw me out of the restaurant or snub their noses at me, right?
No, they would not. I would either me personally, I would either do a white wine or something lighter like a Pinot Noir or perhaps a Grenache.
Okay. All right. Well, if we ever go out to dinner, you're ordering the wine because I have no idea. I mean,
as long as you're paying for the dinner.
All right. This is, a lot to know, and it does intimidate people, doesn't it?
It does intimidate people, and I realized recently that I know more than I ever thought I knew. But once you're around it and you try things together, I like to buy different bottles of wine and then cook at home. I have a catering background from when I was in college, and so I just prepare different meals, pair up different wines while I'm at home, and whatever I like, then I stick with it. And I do a lot of wine dinners where they do this as well.
So you love to make the food instead of finding wine to go with the food, you're finding food to go with the wine.
Pretty much. Yeah. I'll choose the wine first, and then I'll find the food. Always.
Okay, well, what do I know? So what would you say to somebody who is intimidated about the wine? Because, as we said, people do get intimidated and they're hesitant sometimes, and they're afraid they're going to, either get ripped off or afraid that they're going to make the wrong choice, that sort of a thing.
Or that they're going to do it wrong. Yeah. Well, if they're ordering at a restaurant, I would say, honestly, ask help from your server. Because most of those servers, they're not going to talk you up. Most servers actually want to help, and they actually get the opportunity to try them at the restaurants. If you're at a retail store, like a grocery store or a wine shop, I would honestly just say, look for maybe a deal and then just play around with it yourself. You can figure it out. You'll know when it pairs up well.
Often you'll be invited to somebody's house or something, and so you want to bring a bottle of wine, right? I'll go to the store, and I will just look at the selection.
And there are hundreds.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at it, and what I do is I basically just started looking at the price point and try to decide how good of a friend this person is, and then buy a bottle that I think, okay, this is not $2 wine, although I understand, what is it, the 2-butt chuck?
Not my personal favorite, but it's not bad.
Okay, but I don't want to just find a bottle that whatever the price is, and said, okay, well, this can't be too bad because it's costing me,
$10 or
yeah,
whatever
it is, yeah.
And honestly,
Is that
without tasting it, it's really, really hard to know. You would not believe how many people call me a week from a store and ask me what bottle of wine they should get when they're taking it over, and they will tell me the menu. So without tasting a lot of the wine, it's very, very hard to tell. But if you're generally sticking in that, I would say $8 to $12 price range for something that you don't know, you're most likely not going to go wrong.
Okay, so something $8 to $12 is going to be okay for the most part.
Yeah, it's going to be okay. Me personally, I usually go 10 to 15, but
because you're a snob.
Exactly.
Yes, because you know the big words. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's it. So the price. Now, I'd imagine if you're getting into stuff that is like hundreds of dollars or something like that, then you're dealing maybe not so much with the quality of the wine, but the scarcity of it.
You know what? It's a little bit of both. For instance, Opus One. There is scarcity, but it's also huge quality. They grow in very, very limited quantities. It's handcrafted. There is so much work that goes into Opus One. They were making that like a French wine, and originally when they first made it, it was actually kind of a joint effort between a French winery and a California winery, and they wanted to make it like a French wine. So they priced it up there because they don't produce very much, but also the quality is amazing.
What you also made me think of something else, a little bit that I know about the wine, is that you can do a blend, right?
Yes.
But it's not called a blend, is it?
It depends on where you're at.
Because blend is, I know, for Scotch, but I think
no, they do have blends.
They do call it a blend. Okay.
We have red blend. Actually, red blends are super hot right now. For instance, in California, they have blends. Well, there's a GSM, for instance, Klein Cashmere. That one's just the one that's first coming to mind. Grenache Syrah Mourvedre. They did mix in a little bit of Petit Verdot this year. Apothic Red Blend is a fantastic blend. They change the blend a little bit every year, and it's a huge hot seller. Over in France, the wines are named after the regions, so those are blends. And same with Italy, a lot of times. I mean, sometimes you'll get 100%, but a lot of those are blends. They just don't necessarily list what they are.
Oh, what do you mean? Okay, so
they'll blend in like Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre.
Okay, like when I was in France, Corderon, for instance, that's a region, right?
Yes.
And that would be a blend?
That is most likely a blend, and it just depends on which winery is making it, what the blend is. But there are only certain grapes that are permissible to be grown in those regions. Like in Bordeaux, the red grapes that are allowed to be grown in Bordeaux are Cab Merlot, Cab Franc, Malbec, and Petit Syrah. And then the whites, you can have Sauv Blanc, Semillon, and a little bit of Muscadel. So those are just all that's allowed to be grown in that region legally.
Muscatel, isn't that a rot gut wine?
Muscadel is actually used as a blending grape. You will never get 100%. They added a little bit for the sweetness.
Okay. Muscatel, I always imagine that as being, the alkies on the street. Give me a bottle of Muscatel.
Exactly, but they'll blend in like 2%.
Oh, I see. To just add a little,
yes,
add a little flavor to it.
Yeah.
Now let's get to. I mentioned 2-butt chuck, which I think now is like $3 or $4, but it's still very reasonably priced wine they have out of Trader Joe's. I've never had it. At least I don't think I have, but I know people that just love it. Okay. Uh-huh. Then you've also got the box wines and the big jug wines that people drink. Now, I see a look on your face when I mention these things. I'm guessing you're not the biggest fan?
No, I was actually smiling and laughing because box wines have come way far, as far as quality. There are some really, really good box wines out there right now. The jug wines, that's actually just more of a kind of a nostalgia thing in my mind with a lot of people that I still sell to, at least. You'll get it at La Sola Mio, or but they are great also for making sangria. So
okay,
but the box wines actually have come very, very far as quality.
Do certain brands better than others? I mean, I would imagine, or how do you know?
Well, I'm thinking the two that are coming to mind right now are Vinvault and Black Box that have really come far as far as quality.
Do the red wines better in a box than a white wine? Or
actually, no. All the quality on both of those have come along.
I saw a few years ago. I went to the big wine festival here in town. I went to that, and you see the wine, and they had wine in cardboard boxes that they're selling. Cardboard bottles, I guess.
Okay.
They were selling. I saw that at this event and thought, well, that's a good idea for like camping and stuff like that, I guess. I saw it at this event a couple years ago, and I've never seen that anywhere since.
So I'm assuming you mean the Tetra Paks that were square and cardboard. Yeah. Actually, you can find those all over, and they started taking off a little bit. They haven't necessarily in this state, but there you can get some great quality wine out of those, actually.
Really?
And it's a great thing, like you said, for camping or tailgating or trying to drink outside of somewhere before you go in, so you don't break the bottle.
Or to just fake the law enforcement as you're walking down the street.
Exactly. It looks
officer, it's a juice bottle. Yeah,
exactly. It's a juice box, so it's good for that as well.
Another thing about the presentation used to be you didn't want to have a screw off top, a screw on top, or screw off top. You didn't want that. That just showed that was a cheap wine, a classless wine. But now screw tops are acceptable. Is that just because cork is at a premium, or is that because people's attitudes have changed?
I think it's a little bit of both. The technical term is the Stelvin closure. Just wanted to throw another big word at you. And actually,
it's not a test, is there?
I'm quizzing you later. There will be a prize. It's actually not a cheap way to package wine. And everyone thinks that it's cheap, and it's really actually not. There are several reasons for doing the Stelvin closure over the cork. Not necessarily the cork shortage, but that's probably part of it. But also, you don't have the possibility or fewer possibilities of the wine actually being tainted, which they call the wine being corked. Some oxygen can get in there. It can be bad cork. There's several reasons why the wine can be bad. If you have a steel closure, the chances are much, much less than if you have a cork closure.
What does make a wine go bad?
Mostly oxygen. Excess oxygen is that, or there can be, like I said, bad cork. Those are the two biggest ones. So if I buy a bottle of wine, have it around the house for a year or so, just never did around to opening it, never did around, and it's been laying around. I don't have a wine cellar. I'm not, nothing fancy. Just they're on the, my little wine rack in the kitchen counter. Okay, that's another reason. Heat will actually affect that as well. If you don't store it cool enough, which they always say room temperature, which actually means cellar temperature in Europe, which is cooler. So I personally like to keep mine around 50 degrees, and cabs actually keep a whole lot longer than, say, a blend. You don't want to save a blend. You want to drink the blend right away. And usually your cheaper wines, you want to drink them soon. They just don't lay down as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not buying the cheap wine for an investment, so let's drink it now, I guess.
But like an Opus, you could lay that down for years and be fine as long as you saved it out of sunlight and out of the heat.
What about just in general? I buy it. I have to run a few errands. It's in the car for a couple of hours on a summer day. Is that going to ruin it, or is that just...
You're generally fine. Do not keep it in there more than a couple of hours, though. And I have accidentally done this with a sample bottle that was closed, and it will shoot the cork out. Uh-huh. And I've had it explode in my trunk. So you do not want to keep it in there for more than, I would say, 2 hours at the best.
Okay, you say shoot the cork out.
Pressure builds up, and it actually pops the cork through the foil.
Heat does that, yeah. The heat does that.
Well, and that's same with cold. You don't want to keep it in your trunk in the middle of the winter either.
Okay, so if you got wine that you've been hauling around or whatever, you may not want to keep it around.
You just drink it right away if it tastes okay.
Okay. One other thing about the cork. I know that if you go often, you will smell the cork, right? What are you smelling for? What are you looking for when you do that?
You're looking for the mustiness. If you smell like wet newspaper or mustiness like that, then it's generally a bad bottle. It's as I say, corked. Honestly, I don't rely on the cork, and I don't think you should. I think because if they pour you a sample, I think you should swirl it, smell it, take a tiny taste. Usually you can tell that right away. You can tell that much more from the glass than you can from the cork.
When you sell to the restaurants and the package stores and that, when you sell the wine, do you often or do you ever get calls from people saying, hey, you sold me a bunch of corked wine? I mean, do you take a risk sometimes? Because by the time you get the wine, you don't know how long it's been on the loading dock. You don't know where it's been stored. So
well, and that actually a lot of times it mostly happens in the winery before it even gets to us. But it happens, and I do take a risk on that. But I always replace it. I want the end customer to enjoy it. Is basically my first priority. Is I want people to actually get to know wine, get to enjoy wine. If one bottle of the case is bad, I will absolutely replace that because I don't want anyone drinking a bad wine and thinking bad things about that wine.
You say enjoy wine and that. The image is that if you are just really enjoying wine, you're a woman. If you're having wine, you're a guy at dinner. Okay, a guy. I mean, I know that's a gross stereotype, but it's pretty true, isn't it?
It's a terrible stereotype. I was actually just drinking wine with a guy 2 nights ago. And we were not having dinner.
What is he, gay?
No, believe me, no. He was enjoying a cigar, and I was enjoying my wine. He was enjoying his wine.
Okay. So that is. I mean, so that is a. Well, okay.
That is a stereotype. But one of my account owners is a huge wine fan, and he's a man. Uh-huh. And he's married and has 3 kids.
Well, okay, but and I guess I myself, if I don't, and this is my own hang up here, and maybe I should talk about this in therapy instead of on a podcast. But if I'm just going out, and maybe it's my own personal taste too, because I'm not the biggest wine fan. I like Scotch more. But if I'm out just by myself to order a drink, I wouldn't order a wine. And I don't know if it's because of a stigma or just because I don't care for it as much as I like, other drinks.
Think, well, and I know you fairly well, and I think personally that's probably your taste. But I don't think it's a stigma as much. Definitely not anymore. Wine has become so much more acceptable. You see everyone from every race, creed, sexual orientation, whatever, enjoying wine now, and just going out and enjoying wine. There are so many more wine bars. There's one downtown where there are lots of men that just go in and have a glass of wine, but there are also lots of people that go in there and enjoy a glass of scotch.
They're going
all your preference.
They're going in there because they know that's where the women are. That's why they're going in there.
Well, that could be, and it probably works.
Yeah. So for a guy like me, then that I do enjoy the scotch and that as a drink. Would there be certain kinds of wine that I might find more accessible than I would others? You
would actually probably enjoy more Syrahs, certain Zinfandels, as long as they're not too chocolatey, Cabs, Merlot. You would not necessarily, although you seem to be enjoying this one today. Yeah. You would not necessarily go for the lighter, like the Grenache, the Pinot Noir, the red blends. You would go for the bigger ones, the Syrahs, the Zins, the Cabs.
I do like the Syrahs. When I've had that. I do like those. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the sort of thing. What else do I need to know about this? Anything? I mean,
basically, just go out and try different kinds of wine, and you can figure out what you like, and never ever be afraid to ask anyone any questions. I can think of several wine shops where they are more than happy to just tell you about the wines, and several bars that. There is no stigma. If you ask a question, this wait staff, they're trained, and they are never going to judge you. And in fact, they want to educate you about it because they would like to sell you a glass.
They want to show off and say, "Hey, I know all these big French words."
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I spend my time educating them so they can show off to you.
Do you do that? I mean, as a wine salesperson, do you have to spend a lot of time educating the people that end up selling the wine?
That's actually one of my favorite things to do. I love doing waitstaff trainings and going in and actually talking to the waitstaff about it, telling them about the winery, and again, giving them the story because that helps them sell it. And then my most favorite part is doing the wine dinners and actually talking to the public and getting to pair up the wine with the food. If I could just do that all day long, that would make me the happiest.
You talked about the stories. I know that like Francis Ford Coppola has a winery, right?
Yes, he does.
And that I also Robin Williams' brother
Yes, Toad Hollow is
Toad
actually
Hollow, yeah.
his winery.
Yeah, that, and so
And I represent that one.
okay, all right. I've had their wine.
It's good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff. So, did that help sell it? I mean, if
absolutely.
you got a celebrity's name behind it.
Yeah, a lot of times it does depends on who you're talking to. There are certain people that, this person owns it, I must go buy it, and I'm guilty of it. I've done it with a certain winery. I went and bought the wine just because I loved the guy, but. You get a lot of people that actually want to know more about the grapes, but in general, if you have a fun story, people find that more entertaining, and that way they can tell their friends about it as well.
Oh yes. If you're having dinner or something like that,
Exactly.
you can tell a little bit of story about the wine.
Exactly.
And, what about? Okay, I've never been to Napa Valley.
Okay,
that's on the bucket list. Even though
You
I'm
need
not
to go.
even though I'm not a wine guy, I think it'd just be fun to spend some time there hitting the wineries and stuff like that. What would you say to people that haven't been and they're going to go?
Been?
Yeah.
I would say, first of all, take a cab when you get there, because you will want to visit more than one spot. But it is an absolutely gorgeous region of the country, and seriously, you go down like one block to the next block, and there's wineries all the way down. So you want to be able to visit multiple spots. You get to go to the tasting sites. I would say absolutely go there, and Sonoma. I preferred Sonoma. Napa's a little more touristy.
Okay. All right. I did when I was in Israel. I did go and visit a winery there.
Oh.
And that was pretty interesting because it was a winery, and also they I don't know if you call it an orchard or not, but they grew olives.
Oh yes.
And so that was fascinating.
A lot
yeah.
of places in Napa especially do that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And actually Sonoma, Ferrari Carano does that as well, and bottles their own olive oil.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely fantastic. It feels like you are in actually Italy when you're there. You can't even tell that you're in Sonoma anymore on some of these places.
Have you gone overseas? Have you been to Italy or France and visited?
I've not gotten to yet. That's on my bucket list.
All right. Okay. What else? I mean, this has been great. This has been interesting because I did learn a little bit about this, and the one thing I learned is to not really be afraid,
Absolutely.
or intimidated by it.
Never be afraid or intimidated.
Yeah, afraid or intimidated. But okay. Now let me ask you kind of a personal question now. All right. You're going out. You got a date or something like that. First date, right? And the guy's trying to be again the stereotype, the man, right? And and trying to order a wine. And you know all about wine, and what do you do? Do you just throw and...
honestly, me personally, I don't know the last time a man actually tried to order the wine when we were on a date.
I'd be like, whatever she wants. Yeah, get her, whatever she wants. Yeah.
I'm in charge of the wine. I let him be in charge of the food. I won't even let him anymore.
Now the pressure, because you pick the wine first. Oh, I got to pick the food to go with the wine. Pressure. Oh, God.
So I think there's been one or two guys I've gone out with in the past few years that have known about wine enough for me to let them. Okay, I guess I am a wine snob.
And there you have another episode of TomBecka.com, where everyone's exceptional, everyone has a story to tell, and this one was a little bit educational for me. Yeah, a lot of these stories, they can be educational, motivational, inspirational, or some other ational. Yeah, this one was educational. I learned a little bit. I will not be as intimidated now the next time I have to order wine. Hey, if you like what you heard, will you spread the word? Will you put it in your social media? Tell your friends. Let them know. Not only are we available here on TomBecka.com, we're on YouTube. You can check us out on TuneIn Radio app, on OOTunes app, on Swells app. Yeah, we're available there for your mobile device too. Every week, somebody new and interesting. I hope that you enjoyed it and you'll let your friends know to make it a point to make us a part of your week on TomBecka.com. Till next time, take care and bye, y'all.